DREAMBABY Chelsea Security Gate. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Clueless Dad. Today we're going to set up and demonstrate and give a brief review of the Chelsea Gate by DREAMBABY. This is a security gate to keep your kid from going into certain parts of your house. Also works with pets, as you can see, this poor guy stuck outside. So my 10-month-old baby is now back from Japan, and long story short, I needed to get one, picked one up yesterday, and I'm going to demonstrate it here in this apartment. My family's actually upstairs, but I'll demonstrate it here in this hallway. This thing is good for 71 to 82 centimeters wide in its default configuration with no extensions. That's 28 to 32 inches, and it's 75 centimeters tall, which is actually pretty good. So that's definitely big enough for any kid under probably 2, and hopefully big enough dog. If your dog can jump over this, then you're in trouble, right? So this is one of the type that basically screws and just pushes with friction and some rubber feet against the wall. So it's good if you're renting, or in this case you have concrete walls that you can't screw into very easily. But I should warn you, if you are putting it at the top of the stairs, I believe they warn you to actually use a mounting bracket, basically screw something into the wall, because at the top of the stairs, if the kid pushes enough and it does come loose, obviously the consequences are a lot worse. So I'll just show the basic setup, so before you buy this thing you get an idea of what it's like and the quality, and I'll give some initial impressions once I set it up. So this particular hallway I'm going to demonstrate on is 86 centimeters wide. Where I'm going to be putting it finally is 90 centimeters, and as you can see that's wider than the maximum here, which is why I got that extension. The extension is 9 centimeters extra, so between that and the fact that the things can screw in and out, should be fine for both particular locations. And you can get up to 4 extensions, 2 on each side. You have to keep it balanced. But as you can see, it can get quite wide here. So this is up to 4.8 meters. Wow, that's probably too wide if it's this wide. If your house is this wide, you probably shouldn't use just the friction type. So other features wise, yeah, it's pressure mounted. It has like a locking door if you push it open far enough. Smart stay open, they call it. And then it auto closes if it's not basically past that point. It'll shut, which is good too. If you're just passing through, you don't want to leave it open by accident. What else? It opens either way, which is good in like a hallway or doorway. In our case, at the bottom of the stairs, it's actually not really useful. Good for pets. Obviously, it depends on the size of your pet. It's 75 centimeters tall, and in all the videos I've seen so far for all the different versions, DREAMBABY actually makes quite a number of different versions. It's supposed to be mounted flat on the floor. So I'll have to see how that works out in our upstairs staircase situation, but at least here is obviously no problem. So take that into account as well before you buy to make sure that your situation works out with that. Okay, so let's just get started. I'm going to do this in time lapse, and after I'm finished, I'll stop and talk about the various details. Okay, 3, 2, 1, go. Okay. Okay, I got everything unpacked. Let me just explain really quickly. First, let's talk about the extension. So this guy basically just fits on the end, and there's these metal pins. So normally the screw extensions go in here on the corners, but in this case you put them on here and you use the metal pin to connect those two. So pretty straightforward. One interesting thing that I saw in the instructions that I didn't see anywhere else is the fact that it says you must, not that you should, but you must use these plastic feet on the wall. So in other words, this should be affixed to the wall, and then this foot will go into it. So the question is, how does that work? Well, in this case, like I said before, if you're mounting at the top of the stairs, you're supposed to screw these in, but there's also some double-sided tape pads. So it still doesn't require mounting screws, but I don't think it said on the box or on the web or wherever that you had to actually still fix this to your wall. So the question I have is, how do I do this exactly? Like, and I'm sure it says it in there, but basically, like, the first question comes to mind is, Do I stick on two and then screw everything in and get the other ones lined up, or do I try to get, obviously guessing where they're going to be in advance is probably a really bad idea. So anyway, I will tackle that. We'll see how that goes. The other thing is that this warning sign is everywhere. So somehow, because this thing is spring-loaded or whatever, it comes out like this, with a gap between the top, the locking gate parts. And when you screw it in, it's supposed to close. So one really interesting thing is it actually has this sign fixed on here, and it mentions it in the instruction book, and it's actually written on the box. And it says on the top too. It's not just on, every conceivable direction, including the back. But basically it says this gate is not bent. It will straighten out when correctly installed. Important notice, the gap in this gate is not a fault. Do not return to store. The gap will disappear when it's installed correctly, yada, yada, yada. So why is this? Well, I think it's actually on purpose, right? So it's not just a bad design. So as you can see, if you actually do tear this thing off, it's hard to do. There is a pretty big gap in there. And so that basically means you can't incorrectly install it and still use it. So in other words, if it's not tight enough that this thing closes, then it's not tight enough to use. And therefore, you will know that it's basically screwed up. And it's probably better if you take it back to the store and someone explains to you rather than you install it and use it incorrectly. So perceivably, I was like, well, that's a bad design if it comes out like this, right? But there's a reason, and it's actually a pretty good reason. So from liability, if nothing else. But it is annoying that they have to hit you over the head like that. But anyway, so yeah, here you can see that's basically what it looks like. Let's see how hard I have to push to get it. Yeah, pretty hard. So it should be pretty tight against the wall. So anyway, let's get it installed. So for the extension piece, here's the pin that comes with it. There's actually a long end and a short end, and depending on how big your extension is, depends on how you put it in. But in this case, it says for the 9 centimeter extension, which is this size, you want it with the long end to be into the gate, and that means the short end into the extension, so something like this, on both the top and bottom. And I believe the reason why is because there's one hole here connecting, so if you were to put the long end here, it would push this guy out too far. So for this particular case, do it this way. Something like that. And just so you can see, as you screw this guy out, this thing extends out, so you can basically widen it like that. So anyway, let's get these guys in. So you probably can't see, but the bottom here doesn't fit perfectly, and that's actually because the whole frame is bent because of this. So once we get it in, it should all kind of close up. So here you can see it in place. It's actually pretty close fit. So they want you to first make sure that it's obviously parallel and everything, and then flat on the ground, and then tighten the bottom up before doing the top. So let's do that. Okay, so here you can see it with the bottom tightened, not that much, but I'll go back and do it some more. I didn't use the cups again because I'm going to be moving this in about 5 minutes, but you get a good idea. In this particular case, it's pretty easy. Also, the boards, the floorboards here go perpendicular, so super easy to keep it straight too. So anyway, let's get this guy tightened. So now as I tighten, I can see this thing getting closer. Obviously, it gets a little bit harder the tighter it gets. Okay, here we go, not too bad. As you can see, this is the type where you have to basically pull the slider in and then sort of lift up and then push or pull, depending. And yeah, this is in the locked open position. Anything short of 90 degrees and it will close automatically, and it'll do the same thing here. So the trick is that basically if it's a baby, even if they pull on this thing, this is not enough to get it. And this design actually is better than most. It also locks down here. So the idea is that it's a little bit more secure, especially if there's like a big dog pushing on it and stuff like that. It's not going to pop open as easily. So you got to pull back and then kind of lift, and then it'll go out. And you can see, basically if you can see the red, it's unlocked. And it will pretty much every time, I guess, I hope, lock. Yeah, pretty good. Here's that part down here. Yeah, so not too bad. This is all metal. It makes a little clinking sound when it closes. That's pretty good. These plastic parts seem pretty decent too, so we'll have to see how those hold up. But yeah, overall, can't go wrong. Let's try pushing on it. So I think if an adult is really yanking on it, like I can see these things moving if I pull hard enough, but you know, it's mostly flexing. It's not actually like moving. Okay, so yeah, and that whole part with the gap before you install it correctly is a good thing, because that means this is pushing against the walls. Even when the door is open, it's, you know, secure and it's not going anywhere because it's already sort of pushing out. And once it's in there, once this is locked, this thing becomes pretty strong. I mean, as an adult, you could definitely knock it over, but yeah, like a kid can't. Even a pretty big dog probably can't. A big dog probably could, or could jump over it. But also, this is pretty high, so even for an adult, you know, unless you're 5'10" or above, I wouldn't recommend trying to cross this guy, especially not if you're carrying anything. So definitely use the door. So just in case you're wondering, the way that this latch actually works is when you're pulling it back with your thumb, you're actually unlocking this hinge, and the hinge can go up and down, like as you can see here. And so basically, once this one gets to its closed position, it's kind of gets pulled in, and you have to lift it up in order to pull it forward or back. So anyway, that's how the spring part works. Okay, so that's basically it for demonstrating the Chelsea DreamBaby auto security gate, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, pretty good. That's the extension, in case you're wondering. So price-wise, I paid $75 for this, and a little bit extra, I think another $10 for the extension. In Australia, it sells for about 50 US or so, so probably in the US around the same. It's actually made in Dongguan, which is not too far over there in China. Okay, so that's basically it for the DreamBaby Chelsea. Yeah, I'm relatively happy with it. I wasn't expecting too much out of this. The quality's decent. It's not all cheap plastic. We'll see how it holds up. I'll do a follow-up review if I'm not happy with anything. Okay, and to end the video, let me put some footage of me actually installing it upstairs at the bottom of our staircase. Okay, bye. Having the stroller with me all the time up in the overhead bin. As soon as we get off the plane, pull it out, unfold it, and walk off. Literally that could save you 15-20 minutes right there.